thank you for joining us on this interview. For those of you that haven't had an opportunity to look at any of our other videos, just allow me to give you a quick update on exactly what we're doing here today. First of all, this is Employer Support the Guard and Reserve. It's an organization that was established in the early 1970s, and the reason for it primarily was the increasing reliance on the Guard and Reserve members to carry the load for the national defense and response at home in the event of disasters or crisis. Employer Support the Guard and Reserve actually has about a 3,000 volunteer network nationwide. Each state has a committee that supports it, and the entire organization and its goals are really focused on one major thing, and that is creating a strong working partnership with the employers of our Guard and Reserve members. Why is that important? Because it is a dual track responsibility for our Guard and Reserve to hold up their responsibilities to their employer while at the same time maintaining readiness and availability to be mobilized in the event of a crisis, either here at home or abroad. So it becomes extremely important. And the only way that we can accomplish this mission is through the efforts of our volunteers. An amazing thing about our volunteers is they are in fact a non-paid Department of Defense employee. And as such, they represent our national interests as they go out and work with our employers and our Guard and Reserve members, appraising them of their responsibilities and obligations, as well as supporting them by recognizing their support. This is a mission that has been supported so effectively over the last 50 years. And that's what this is all about, celebrating our 50-year anniversary by celebrating our volunteers. Today, we are really pleased to introduce you to Patrick Kuykendall, who has actually been full-time supporting Employer Support the Guard and Reserve and its volunteers. And as he transitioned out of contracting and other career opportunities, he retained his volunteer mission and responsibilities because he understood the mission so well, and he wanted to give back to the Guard and Reserve members that are giving so much to our state and nation. So with that, I'd like to introduce you now to Patrick. Patrick, thanks for joining us today and making yourself available for this interview.
Good morning, General Combs. How are you?
All is good.
Nice.
You know, I got to tell you, we've had a personal relationship for over 8 years, and I have very much admired your commitment to the mission of ESGR, which leads me to a real question: is whatever brought you to ESGR?
You know, that's a very interesting question. It's back in when my late father was still alive. He was the Northern Arizona chair. He had taken over Northern Arizona in 1995, working with the state chair at the time, Bill Valenzuela. So Pops was the Northern Arizona chair. I was serving in the Guard, and we were both in business together in private sector. So it was just a great relationship. Dad was doing the ESGR mission, was doing a lot of boss lifts, doing a lot of travel, supporting Guard and Reservists. And since I was still serving in the Guard, I understood the 1164 process, the reimbursement, and was able to answer a lot of questions and work hand in hand with him until I retired out of the Guard in 2005. And the day I retired, Dad said, "Hey, you know, why don't I pass on the Northern Arizona chairman's reins to you, to ESGR?" And he goes, "Now I'll support you in your new mission." And so I took over working under Scott Essex, and until I became full-time with California ESGR in 2009, I was the Northern Arizona chairman. So been a great organization, was full-time from 2009 to 2016, came back to Arizona to spend time with the family, and jumped back on. I was able to dual hat with Arizona and California as vice chair, and then transitioned totally into the vice chair of Arizona in 2017, and enjoying the ride. What a ride.
Well, it's amazing to me that volunteering became such a family affair. And for our viewers, I would just tell you that there are many families that do connect with ESGR's mission and gain a lot of personal satisfaction working with our Guard Reserve members and their employers. And obviously, you've seen it from both sides, the full-time side and the part-time, and you've held all the key leadership positions as a volunteer, serving both as a chair and also as a vice chair, and frankly, doing virtually the whole spectrum of missions. And for our viewers, I would just tell you that our missions run the full spectrum. We conduct Boss List, which is a program in which we bring our employers together with our military members and show them what our military does. And it's always an uplifting experience, both for the employer and for that Guard and Reserve member who is able to share their skills with their employer and recognize what they bring to the table with that dual membership. But you gain a lot of insight. How many years have you served as a volunteer?
Since 2005. So we're now at 17 years. And but it's been in the family. Yeah, but it's been in the family for 27 years. I was calculating that. And about half the time that ESGR has been in existence, our family has been involved with the ESGR program.
I'm sure our viewers want to know why. Why would you commit to multiple decades of service?
You know what? I think it's volunteering becomes in your blood. You want to give back. We're so blessed when we serve in uniform. You and I both come out of not only wearing the uniform, we come out of private sector. We've both been in civilian sector and wearing the uniform as a reservist. So when you have the knowledge, when you've put the passion into not only being in business, but also serving your country, the citizen warrior concept, the dual hat, we know what the current citizen warriors go through, juggling that part-time job, the wearing the uniform, juggling your civilian career, juggling your family life. And then also, many of our Guard and Reservists are volunteering for organizations within their communities. There's only 24 hours in a day, but it's amazing how not only our volunteers, but those that are in the Guard Reserve are able to do so much and still meet the qualifications demanded of them as active duty soldiers. So,
yeah. I'd like to underscore a couple things you mentioned, because I think they're really core values in the volunteer team that we have. And one of the core values is the fact that our volunteers know that they're lightening the load and the stresses associated with what Patrick just outlined, multiple obligations, and attempt to be sure that they don't drop a responsibility. And part of making that happen is an effective dialogue between the Guard and Reserve member and their employer. The way ESGR does that is we go into the place of business, recognize employers that do support their Guard and Reserve so that they can deepen their commitment in that support. And when they are called to serve, they help them transition back into the workplace. And this stress can be almost eliminated through good communication dialogue. That's what our volunteers are offering. They're opening up those lines of communication. They're making sure that we're recognizing and supporting the employer that commits to that support to their Guard and Reserve members. So Patrick, I know you have a rich history of providing that kind of support, and you made the lives of so many of our Guard and Reserve members a little easier to handle. And that's what we're all about, is trying to lift that burden. But given that, what sort of jobs have you held other than being a chair and a vice chair as a volunteer? Was there a particular task or job that was particularly memorable to you that you would consider a highlight of your volunteer service?
There's so many of them out there, Jim. It's, being the boots on the ground, going and delivering the Patriot Awards. What a great thing to go talk to an employer, doing unit briefs. There's just so many. Working in the full-time role with our Military Veterans Resource Center there in Los Alamitos, with the volunteers that came in and supported the veterans and our Guard and Reservists right there at Los Alamitos. But, again, it's recognizing that employer with an award, and employers are so humble. Employers don't do good things for our veterans and our Guard and Reservists to get recognition. They do it because it's the right thing to do. We live in a very patriotic society, and our business owners, our managers, our supervisors just want to do the right things. Now, every once in a while, we have a little bump in the road with some confusion on policy or USERRA, but employers understand the value of a citizen warrior. They understand the work ethic, the on time, the global perspective, the dedication, the time management, the drug-free. You know, our guard and reservists bring so much to the table. And again, being able, on behalf of a guard or reservist, present their employer, their supervisor, or manager with a Patriot Award, a 7 SEALs and above and beyond, all the way to the Secretary of Defense Freedom Award is priceless. That's worth more than meeting anybody, you know, of high ranking or going to DC and meeting elected officials. Being the boots on the ground has been my favorite thing to do in ESGR, and I cherish that.
Well, I could say firsthand that I observed you being extremely effective at it. And I want to remind our viewers that you are an individual that has a executive level job with the veteran community right now, as well as continuing in a leadership volunteer capacity. And my final question to you is, how do you make that work for you today?
I can't say no. You know, it's just it's an interesting thing. I'm very honored to be the state veterans manager for Arizona. I vice chair ESGR. I'm the Army Reserve Ambassador for Arizona, and I stay very active in the veteran community across the state. But you know, when you put the pieces together, they all work together. It's a wheel. You know, and that's the great thing about the veteran and the Guard Reserve community is our citizen warriors, the majority of them are veterans. So the pieces and the veterans cog works together with our Guard and reservists. And the veteran community is very strong here in Arizona as we get more retirees moving into our great state. Now we run into a new dilemma of workforce and housing and transportation and everything. But it still all comes together. We've got great Guard and reservists. We've got a great adjutant general down in Phoenix that supports the ESGR mission. The commander of the Army Reserve is very supportive of our Army Reserve organizations and our commitment here in Arizona. So when you've got great leadership, the rest all comes together. And I'm just, you know, you put it to the pieces together and it's just fun. Very honored.
Well, Patrick, on behalf of the ESGR community, I want to salute your long and steady service to the Guard and Reserve members and the employer support of the Guard and Reserve. You are what I would consider a classic volunteer, meaning you find a way to continue to contribute despite all the other obligations that you have. And we're honored that you've been a member of that team and continue your membership despite the increased responsibilities that you personally have. So I think you're a perfect example of the level of dedication and support that we've been enjoying from our volunteers across the country. And with that, I just want to salute your service and say thank you for giving us your time today. And we look forward to working as a ESGR family into the future.
Outstanding. Thanks for your time and happy birthday. Happy 50 years to ESGR. And I look forward to the next 50.